All right, my presentation is on objective number 5, which is creating strategic self-directed learners through positive behavior management. I have a lot of information, so I'm going to try and get through it all, hopefully. So this is what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to hit a lot on the comprehensive behavior management plan. I'll go into a lot of detail on that. And then creating a structured classroom and social emotional learning, and how all three of these contribute to positive behavior in the classroom and making strategic and self-directed students. So let's start with the comprehensive behavior management plan. What is it? It's an approach to behavioral management achieved through organization, consistency, classroom structure, and it has a lot of active involvement with the students, staff, and families. And I just want to mention, you want to create it before the school year even starts. Again, I will go into more detail of this later through the presentation. But then why is it important? This behavior management plan, it reduces the opportunity for disruptive behavior tremendously, which then leaves more time for uninterrupted instruction, which we all know is very precious these days. So there are also a lot of studies and research that shows without this comprehensive behavior management plan in place, that at-risk students, they tend to perform poorly in academics and behavior, which then may result in special education referrals that may not necessarily be needed because it could be prevented on the teacher's end. So let's get into the 6 key principles. I'm just going to touch on them very briefly here. The first one is plan ahead. As I mentioned before, you want to make sure you create this plan well before the school year even starts. This way you're fully prepared, you know what to expect, and then you know how to handle certain behavioral issues with consequences and things like that. So the second is quality instruction. You want to make sure your lessons are interesting, they're engaging, and they're meaningful, and they address all levels of student learning. And this includes direct instruction, obviously, and you want to include peer interaction as well to get your students interacting with one another. The third is positive praise. You want to make sure you give lots of recognition to students that are behaving correctly. You'll notice that other students will catch on and say, "Oh, wow, they're being rewarded for sitting quietly. Maybe I should do that too." 4 is supportive techniques. This is support and strategies are in place for those students that are struggling, perhaps academically and behaviorally. So you want to make sure you know how to handle that. And then the 5th one, be a Q-tip. Actually, use this at my last school. Q-tip, quit taking it personally. A lot of students, you'll come across some that will act disruptively, and it may get under your skin, but do not take it personally. Their words or their actions, you have to remain professional. And then the last is be consistent. You don't want to give up. This plan is not going to work overnight. It takes time, but just stick with it and stay positive, and you'll see some changes over time. Okay, so then the next, this is the most important here, is the 5 core components. And here, the first one is the statement of purpose. This is just a brief statement to the students, staff, and parents explaining the purpose of this behavior management plan. You want to make sure that it is focused, direct, and it uses language, the language that students and families can understand. The second is rules. This is the teacher's expectations of student behavior. These need to be taught. They need to be posted in the room so you can refer back to them multiple times throughout the day, the week, throughout the whole year. And then again, you want to make sure you're reviewing them frequently and you're reinforcing them. Things to keep in mind when making rules for the classroom is you want to positively state the rules. So instead of saying don't run in the hallway, you would rather say please walk in the hallway. You want to be specific instead of just saying use quiet voices. Specify, I want you to use a whisper voice at this time. And then the students need to understand the expected behavior instead of just saying be nice to your friends, say don't hit your friends. Again, that kind of falls into this being specific. So then next is the procedures. These are steps that are required to complete the daily routines correctly and successfully. Um, Again, these should also be specific and it could specific to given activities or locations. So whether it's in the classroom or in the hallway or in the cafeteria, things like that. I suggest that you model it first and then have the students kind of go through and practice it so they all know what to expect, what you were expecting. Next is consequences. This is actions that the teacher uses in response to either positive or negative behavior. And I'll get into detail of both of those in a second. Again, you definitely want to develop these ahead of time. You don't want to have to be put on the spot if a student hits another. You don't want to just have to make up some consequence because you want to make sure that it's consistent. So, you know, if Sally hits Billy, you know, one day and then the next Billy is now hitting Joseph, you want to make sure that the consequence was the same for each time. Again, you want the consequences to be specific and that it relates to the rules and procedures. So for positive reinforcement, this is a reward. It rewards desired behavior. There are three things that you can do. You can have tangible positive reinforcements. It's something that a student can actually see, hold, or touch, such as pencils, stickers, candy, things like that. Social, which is interpersonal interactions. It's like a high five, just a smile, or you can invite that student to have lunch with you one day. And then the next is an activity, say extra recess or extra computer time, or you can make them the teacher helper for the day, something like that. And then you have negative consequences, which will reduce undesired behavior. So here, this could be loss of privileges, it's loss of recess time, or and it also needs to be immediate. Don't say, oh, I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to talk to you in 5 minutes about that. No, it needs to be immediate. You need to be calm, not angry, and firm, and make eye contact. Let the student know that you're serious. And also, this needs to be consistent as well, and that it matches the crime. So you don't want to give a discipline referral for a student who interrupted. I mean, again, it has to fit the crime. So, and then you want to have this action plan, which once these previous four components are established, then the action plan is made to ensure that the management plan is implemented by developing a toolkit and teaching the plan to the students. You're sharing the plan with others, and then you review this plan regularly. Doing all of these things, you'll be very successful in creating positive behavior in your classroom, which then with positive behavior comes confident students, and then which is more teaching time, more learning time, and those students will then learn those strategic and self-directed skills. So next, you want to create a structured environment, and this will include organizing the classroom in such that all the students are visible to the teacher. You don't have anyone hiding behind a bookshelf somewhere. And you want to make sure all the students can see the instruction at the front of the room or wherever it is that you are teaching, and that the student supplies, that they are organized and easily accessible, excuse me, and the high traffic areas are easily navigated. The daily schedules, they need to be consistent and visible. They need to be up in the room so students can see them, refer to them multiple times a day. If they're unsure what's coming next, they can just look up, see the time, see the activity, and then they can stay on task. That way they're not interrupting you in instruction. Cueing transitions. This you could give like a 5-minute warning or just verbal cues. This will help cut down on other interruptions, distractions, things like that. Keeping kids on task is very important. Social emotional learning is extremely important too. This helps build meaningful relationships that foster engaged and meaningful learning, and it helps students learn and manage these 5 core competencies, which the first one is self-awareness, where students they can recognize their own thoughts and emotions and the effects of their behavior. Self-management is where they regulate their emotions and behaviors by controlling impulses, manage stress levels, and can even set and work toward goals. Social awareness, they have the ability to respect the differences in others. Relationship skills, this is where they form relationships with effective communication, listening skills, cooperation, solving conflicting matters appropriately, and being able to offer help when needed to others. And responsible decision making, they can decipher between right and wrong and use their morals and ethics to guide their actions, choices, decision making skills, and interactions with others. When a student is able to learn and master these 5 core competencies, they are confident in themselves, they're confident with others, they're able to stay on task, they're able to just make their own decisions and solve their own problems, which is what we want for strategic and self-directed learners. And an overall, encompass of everything that I kind of talked about will help create this, especially with the positive behavior. If you, the teacher yourself, is confident in what you're doing and you're giving praise to those students, you're just creating a very positive setting in your classroom. It's going to really help keep those students on task and get them to learn what they need to learn and learn how to navigate through their own learning, which is a good skill to have. So I think that is all that I have here. And thank you very much.